Pop superstar Katy Perry is being probed by Victoria Police over bombshell sexual assault allegations made by Aussie actor Ruby Rose.
Police have confirmed they are investigating Rose's claim the I Kissed a Girl singer assaulted her at a Melbourne nightclub more than a decade ago.
This is the story of how one of the biggest pop stars on the planet went from shooting into outer space to watching her entire world come crashing back down to Earth. Katy Perry, the woman who kissed a girl and liked it, who shot fireworks from her chest and roared her way to over 100 million records sold and 5 #1 singles from Teenage Dream, making her only the second artist, besides Michael Jackson, to achieve that feat on the Billboard Hot 100, now finds herself under a $15 million criminal investigation by Australian police, locked in a vicious legal battle with a dying elderly veteran, freshly dumped by her fiancé of 5 years, and dating one of the most polarizing political figures in the Western Hemisphere, all while her latest album holds the distinction of being one of the lowest-rated records in Metacritic history. Things aren't looking good for Katy Perry, and honestly, that might be the understatement of the decade. Let's start where this gets darkest, because there's no way to sugarcoat this one. On April 13, 2026, Australian actress Ruby Rose posted a statement on social media that sent shockwaves through the entertainment industry. In response to a complex article about Perry attending Coachella, Rose wrote plainly and bluntly, "Katy Perry sexually assaulted me at Spice Market nightclub in Melbourne." She then followed up with graphic details of the alleged incident, claiming that Perry approached her while she was resting her head on a friend's lap, pulled her own underwear aside, and pressed herself against Rose's face until Rose woke up and, in her words, projectile vomited. Rose was in her early 20s at the time. Perry would have been 25. This was during the peak of her career, following her breakthrough single I Kissed a Girl and subsequent Grammy nominations. The timing of these allegations in the post-Me Too era adds significant cultural weight to Rose's decision to speak out after nearly 2 decades of silence. The next day, Rose announced she'd be contacting police. The day after that, she confirmed she had finalized all my reports and wouldn't be speaking publicly about the case anymore. Within 48 hours, Victoria Police confirmed to CNN that officials from the Melbourne Sexual Offences and Child Abuse Investigation Team had formally launched an investigation into the allegations. They declined further comment, citing the ongoing nature of the case. Perry's camp responded quickly and forcefully. Her representative issued a statement calling the allegations not only categorically false, but dangerous, reckless lies. They pointed to what they described as Rose's well-documented history of making serious public allegations on social media against various individuals, claims that have repeatedly been denied by those named. There's a genuinely complicated wrinkle here. Back in 2011, Rose herself wrote an article about partying with Perry in Melbourne, describing a wild night out where they crashed a Year 12 formal together. In that article, Rose recounted drinking heavily and vomiting on Katy's foot. She framed it as a funny, reckless story. Perry's team has cited this as directly contradicting the assault narrative. But Rose addressed the timeline head-on, writing, "I was only in my early 20s. I'm now 40. It has taken almost 2 decades to say this publicly. Though I'm so grateful to have made it long enough to find my voice, it just shows how much of an impact trauma and sexual assault takes." A former manager of the Spice Market nightclub, speaking to the Herald Sun, confirmed that both Rose and Perry were present at the venue in August of 2010. He added that the pair were drunk, but weren't paralytic or anything. Here's the critical legal detail. In the Australian state of Victoria, where the alleged assault took place, there's no statute of limitations on reporting a sexual offense. So the fact that this allegedly happened 16 years ago doesn't prevent charges from being filed. No formal charges have been filed yet, but the investigation is active, real, and ongoing. That alone would be enough to dominate headlines for any celebrity. But for Katy Perry, it's just one chapter in what has become a cascading series of disasters. Let's rewind to the saga that literally inspired proposed federal legislation. Yes, you heard that right. Katy Perry's real estate drama got so ugly that someone tried to pass a law because of it. In July of 2020, right around the time Perry was about to give birth to her daughter Daisy Dove Bloom, she and then-fiancé Orlando Bloom purchased a $15 million mansion in Montecito, California. The seller was Carl Westcott, a business owner and the father-in-law of Real Housewives, of Dallas star Cameron Westcott. Westcott had purchased the home just 2 months earlier for roughly $11 million, meaning he stood to make a $4 million profit on the flip. Sounds like a clean deal, right? It wasn't. Days after agreeing to the sale, Westcott tried to reverse the entire deal. His argument was that he'd been recovering from back surgery at the time and was under the influence of strong pain medication when he signed the contract. He claimed he wasn't of sound mind. In August of 2020, Westcott filed a lawsuit against Perry's business manager, Bernie Goodvie, to rescind the sale. What followed was a 5-year legal war, 5 years, over a house. The details that emerged were brutal. Westcott had been diagnosed with Huntington's disease, a devastating genetic brain disorder, back in 2015. His son publicly stated that the prolonged legal battle had been agonizing for his father, who had become bedridden and was nearing the end of his life. The optics of a pop star worth hundreds of millions of dollars, locked in litigation with a dying elderly veteran, were, to put it mildly, not great. The case was finally resolved in December of 2023, when a judge ruled in Perry's favor, finding that Westcott had not shown persuasive evidence that he wasn't of sound mind when he agreed to the deal. The court found he appeared to be coherent, engaged, lucid, and rational during the transaction. Perry officially took possession of the home in May of 2024. But the story didn't end there, because then came the damages phase. Perry's team, through business manager Goodvie, sought $5 million in damages, citing lost rental value and money spent on necessary repairs. On August 26, 2025, Perry herself took the stand, and it didn't go well. The presiding judge was visibly frustrated with how proceedings had been handled, stating on the record, "That's outrageous that she's only allowed to testify today. It doesn't reflect well on you. It doesn't reflect well on Ms. Hudson. It's not nice. It's not right." Calling her by her birth name, Catherine Hudson. That's a judge publicly scolding one of the most famous women in the world in open court. In November of 2025, Westcott was ordered to pay Perry more than $1.8 million in damages. Goodvie was awarded around $3 million, but Perry herself was also hit with a hefty $1.2 million expenses bill, and Westcott's attorneys found a way to twist the knife, pointing out that if the property was supposedly in such disrepair, why had Perry rented it out to actor Chris Pratt and his wife Katherine Schwarzenegger after taking possession? The fallout from this case was so significant that it inspired the Perry Act, short for Protecting Elder Realty for Retirement Years, drafted in 2023. The proposed bill would have introduced a 72-hour cooling-off period for real estate transactions involving homeowners aged 75 and older. Its now defunct website described it as a safeguard against elder financial abuse and predatory acquisitions. The bill ultimately didn't pass, but the fact that it existed at all tells you everything about how this story played in the court of public opinion. And speaking of real estate nightmares, we can't forget the convent. Back in 2015, Perry attempted to purchase a former convent in Los Angeles from a group of elderly nuns. The nuns didn't want to sell to her. Sister Catherine Rose Holzman, 89 years old at the time, told reporters, "Katy Perry represents everything we don't believe in." She also made a direct plea, saying, "To Katy Perry, please stop. It's not doing anyone any good except hurting a lot of people." Those were among the last public words Sister Holtzman ever spoke. On March 9th, 2018, she collapsed and died during a court hearing related to the dispute. She was 89 years old. She died in a courtroom, fighting a pop star over a convent. Perry's option to purchase the property ultimately expired in 2019, and the deal never went through. But the image of a nun dying in court while opposing Katy Perry became one of those indelible, haunting footnotes in celebrity history that never quite goes away. Now let's talk about the career freefall, because while all of this legal chaos was unfolding, Perry released an album, and it was a disaster. 143 dropped on September 20th, 2024, and was met with some of the most scathing reviews any major pop star has received in the modern era. At Metacritic, the album received an average score of 37 out of 100, based on 18 reviews, indicating generally unfavorable reviews. That score made it the lowest-rated album of Perry's entire career, the lowest-rated album of the entire 2020s, and the 19th lowest-rated album overall in Metacritic's history. Critics savaged it for outdated production and lackluster songwriting, with several reviewers comparing it to AI-generated music. Think about that for a second. Professional music critics listened to an album by one of the best-selling artists of her generation and said it sounded like a robot wrote it. The album's producer was Dr. Luke, real name Łukasz Gottwald, who had been accused of sexual assault by Kesha in a years-long defamation lawsuit that was finally settled in 2023 after the Kesha versus Dr. Luke legal battle divided the music industry. Perry's decision to work with him was itself deeply controversial and drew intense criticism before a single note of the album was even heard. Some defended the pile-on. Nick Levine of the BBC suggested that the album's reception may also have been hampered by a toxic combination of misogyny and ageism that tends to affect female artists over 35. There may be some truth to that, but a Metacritic score of 37 is hard to explain away entirely with cultural bias. Perry embarked on the Lifetimes tour between April and December of 2025 to support the album, but the damage to her artistic credibility was already done. Then, in what might be the single most tone-deaf decision of her career, Perry went to space. On April 14, 2025, Perry was part of Blue Origin's NS-31 mission, an all-female spaceflight on Jeff Bezos' rocket. The flight lasted 10 minutes and 21 seconds. 10 minutes and 21 seconds of weightlessness that cost her months of goodwill in the emerging space tourism industry. Perry herself had promoted the flight by saying they were going to put the ass in astronaut. Columnist Moira Donegan criticized the mission for emphasizing appearance over substantive achievements. Public figures, including Lily Allen, Emily Ratajkowski, and Olivia Munn piled on, criticizing the flight as an expensive recreational activity rather than a scientific mission. The reception was brutal. Perry responded to the backlash by writing that she'd felt battered and bruised, but had kept looking to the light. But looking to the light from a billionaire's rocket, while an elderly veteran fights you in court over a mansion, is a particular kind of bad look that no amount of positive affirmations can fix. And then her personal life collapsed. In June of 2025, TMZ reported that Orlando Bloom was heading to Jeff Bezos and Lauren Sanchez's wedding as a single man. In July, after weeks of speculation, Perry and Bloom confirmed they had split after a nearly 10-year relationship. Representatives for the former couple released a joint statement saying they had been shifting their relationship over the past many months to focus on co-parenting their daughter Daisy. This wasn't Perry's first high-profile relationship breakdown. Her marriage to comedian Russell Brand ended in divorce back in 2011, establishing a pattern of public relationship struggles that the tabloids have tracked for over a decade. Bloom, for his part, was gracious about it. "I'm great, man," he told reporters. "I'm so grateful. We have the most beautiful daughter. We're going to be great. It's nothing but love." But Perry didn't stay single for long. By late July of 2025, just weeks after the split was confirmed, TMZ published video of Perry having dinner with former Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau at Le Violon in Montreal. By mid-October, Trudeau was reportedly gathering his closest friends and political confidants to tell them the relationship was real. 2 weeks after that, the couple was photographed holding hands in Paris, celebrating Perry's 41st birthday. One Ottawa-based political operative described it as a 15-hour date. Katy Perry went from Orlando Bloom to Justin Trudeau in the span of a few weeks. The internet had thoughts. Many of those thoughts weren't kind. So, let's step back and take the full inventory. As of early 2026, Katy Perry is simultaneously under active criminal investigation by Australian police for sexual assault allegations. She's embroiled in a multi-million-dollar legal battle with the family of a bedridden veteran suffering from Huntington's disease. She carries the legacy of a nun who literally died in court opposing her. Her most recent album is historically, quantifiably, one of the worst-reviewed records of all time. She faced massive public backlash for a 10-minute joyride on a billionaire's rocket. Her engagement to one of Hollywood's most beloved actors ended publicly, and she's now dating a former world leader who is himself a lightning rod for controversy. Any single one of these stories would be a full news cycle for most celebrities. Together, they paint a portrait of someone whose life and career have entered a kind of freefall that almost defies comprehension. The thing about Katy Perry is that she was never supposed to be this person. She was the fun one, the colorful one, the one with the candy and the fireworks and the cotton candy hair. She built an empire on joy and spectacle and unapologetic pop maximalism. And now, at 41 years old, she's become a case study in how quickly and completely a public image can unravel when the hits stop coming and the lawsuits don't. No charges have been filed in Australia. The Mansion case is still winding through its final legal stages. Her relationship with Trudeau is apparently going strong, and Katy Perry is, by all accounts, still Katy Perry. Still performing, still posting, still pushing forward. But the weight of everything pressing down on her right now is extraordinary, and the question hanging over all of it, the one nobody can answer yet, is whether any of this is survivable. Not legally, not financially, but reputationally. In the court of public opinion, where pop stars live and die, things aren't looking good for Katy Perry. And the worst part might be that nobody's quite sure how much worse they can still get.